Coming up on the next episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
You're now listening to Zuzu All Grown Up.
She's been featured in more than 20 films from the early days of film and television.
He is a psychotherapist and her loving husband.
Together, they are on a mission to brighten your day and your life.
It's a time to smile, a time to laugh, a time to expect more.
It's time to get inspired with your hosts, Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Chris Brunel.
It's time to meet Zuzu, all grown up.
Do you believe that life is wonderful in principle, but for some reason just isn't so consistently in practice? Every life will have its ups and downs. But have you ever thought that if there were only more people around you encouraging, uplifting, and even inspiring you, then life would be more fulfilling? If only people like George and Mary Bailey were in your inner circle, then life could truly be wonderful all the time? If so, we've got good news for you, because you can find such people on this podcast and at zuzunetwork.com. This podcast is the vision of Karolyn Grimes, Zuzu, and Dr. Chris Brunel, illustrating how the timeless message of It's a Wonderful Life can be and is applied to our modern lives and situations. Indeed, when you take that message to heart, your life will become immeasurably more wonderful. Visit us at zuzunetwork.com and listen to this podcast series to learn more about how. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another episode of Zuzu, All Grown Up.
No, that's not Jimmy Stewart, but it is George Bailey, actor and great friend of the It's a Wonderful Life Festival in Seneca Falls. Brian Rohan joins us next to discuss embodying the spirit of George Bailey and bringing him to life for thousands of fans each year. He'll also discuss his other current and upcoming projects.
Get ready for miracles. Get ready for Zuzu. All Grown Up.
Today's guest is a beloved actor who joins us in Seneca Falls each year portraying George Bailey. But he's also a diverse character actor, well known for his many stage productions, such as Marilyn and Me, and as about the opposite of George Bailey as you can get, Psycho. Brian Rohan, thanks so much for making time to join us today. You need no introduction to your friend Karolyn, so over to both of you for a talk among friends.
Well, today I have not only a very personal friend joining me, he's also a star. He can be a scary man, and he's also a very handsome man, and he's very talented. I could go on forever. He's a very dear friend of mine, and his name is Brian Rohan, and he lives in Hollywood, and LA. And I think I should just tell you that he looks like my father, Jimmy Stewart. He's a dead ringer, if you want to know. And years ago, we met because he came to an autograph show in Burbank. Do you remember that, Brian?
I do. I remember it. It was branded into my brain. I was so excited to meet you that day.
He came over and started talking to me, and I was like, oh, my mouth was open, and I couldn't believe it because he talked like Jimmy Stewart. He looked like Jimmy Stewart. He's tall like Jimmy Stewart. He's skinny like Jimmy Stewart. He has big feet like Jimmy Stewart. He just was Jimmy Stewart. I was just so impressed. And so we got to talking, and he's definitely was a fan of Jimmy's, and he was a fan of the movie It's a Wonderful Life. So we've stayed friends through the years. Eventually, we managed to get him back to Seneca Falls to this It's a Wonderful Life festival. And he is our George Bailey throughout the whole weekend. And now he's George Bailey at the Jimmy Stewart Festival all weekend. And at the time, I think you still are working for the studio, aren't you?
Yes, for Universal, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, we can say that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I'm still working for Universal. Today's actually my day off. So this,
okay. All
yeah.
right. But he also is a copy of another star he really liked. And so that's where he works at the studio there for a clone for that guy. How'd you get to look like two stars?
I have no idea, but it just happened. There was an interview with Carol Channing when she turned like 92, and she just starts talking. She goes, I'm 92 now. And everybody starts applauding. And she goes, oh, no, I didn't do anything. It just happened. So I think that you could probably say the same about, the actors whom I am very, very fortunate to represent.
You not only do it perfectly with your stutter, everything that you do is Jimmy Stewart. And I'm so impressed that you were able to get it down so well, because I also know that you've done some really scary stuff and you weren't Jimmy Stewart then.
One of the things I learned about you very early on is that you are a big horror movie fan as well.
That is true. That is true.
That was a little bonding thing that we had there.
First thing he sent me was this film that he did, Pins in Your Eyes in the bathtub.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I thought you were going to say the other one. I thought you were going to say the spoon.
Oh, no, that's there too. But the eye thing, that one really got me. But
yeah.
It's also a very famous spoon killer. He kills people with spoons. He's in a black robe and he's the spoon dangerous fella.
But I think we should also preface that with saying that one is a comedy. It's a horror comedy. There's gross moments.
Kind of.
But yes, exactly. Exactly. The thinking was people have been killed with, knives, forks, everything, but nobody's been killed with a spoon until now.
Yeah, he tries really hard and he gets it done.
Relentless.
Can you tell people where they might be able to see that thing?
They're all online now on the easiest online platform on YouTube. You could just either type in my name, Brian with an I, Brian, Rohan, Rohan, and it will eventually come up. The spoon one, you could also put in Spoon Killer. The title of that is The Horribly Slow Murderer with the Extremely Inefficient Weapon. So typing in Spoon Killer is a little bit of a time saver there. The other one is called Criticized, as in past tense of criticize. Criticized, that one comes up. There's a few of them.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, a few of them go on. They appear online and then they get taken off. I'm not sure because I'm not the one that puts them on there. So it's kind of a now you see them, now you don't. But I know for sure you can catch Horribly Slow Murderer. I think it was, inflating it. I think it was at 37 million views.
So do you think you're born in the wrong century?
Sometimes I think so. Yes, I'm very, very nostalgic. Did you say it was funny. I was talking to my mom today and she didn't even know. She lives in New York. So I had took my car in for an oil change. And as I was walking back, I gave her a call and she wasn't even sure what kind of car I drove. So what I drive is a wood-paneled PT Cruiser. I know I posted it. It's my second wood-paneled PT Cruiser. Closest you're going to get to having a 1940s car without the headache of constantly changing it and white wall tires and emissions issues. Now I'm talking to you, before we started, I'm in my 1923 California bungalow with all the vintagey stuff. I just love the look of it. I've always been very nostalgic and I just feel comfortable. I'm not sure what came first, like falling in love with that era through movies or wanting to be an actor. I think one just kind of fed the other. I grew up in an era where my parents never got cable until all the kids moved out. And I remember going over, I'm like, now you get cable. But they never got cable. So, when I was a kid, there were the three major networks and a few syndicated ones and PBS. So I had a shared pop culture with the older generations. I knew who Mae West was. They knew who Mae West was. You ask a 14-year-old today, who's Mae West? And, they're probably, you'll find a few of them who know. But yeah, so I remember, I think Fritos corn chips used to have a cartoon of W.C. Fields. So we all sort of that 1930s, 1940s culture was part of my growing up too, because we didn't have 1,000 channels and streaming and everything. We had fewer options, and that's not a complaint because they were wonderful options. But yeah, so I think that was one of the ways I kind of fell in love with that whole era.
And when did you discover Jimmy Stewart?
Jimmy, I discovered, well, the first movie I saw, and I didn't know it was Jimmy Stewart, was The Spirit of St. Louis. My dad put it on because they filmed it. It was like a big budget Warner Brothers production. I think they did 6 replicas of the actual plane, some that flew, some that didn't. And they shot some of it in Ireland. When he lands in Dingle Bay, there's those beautiful shots of him, going over the sheep go running when the plane like flies low, and you see all the thatched cottages. So I have a feeling, Dingle Bay is in Galway, where my dad was from. I was like 8 or 9 at the time, so I didn't go, you're only watching this for this one. But I think that's why it was on. So that was probably the first Jimmy Stewart movie I saw. But now my dad, getting into that, from Ireland, but he resembled Jimmy Stewart. He resembled older, white-haired, Tonight Show era Jimmy Stewart. And even though, Irish people have been accused of talking too quickly, I have several cousins who I can, bring as evidence. Dad was a very slow talker. He sort of spoke in an Irish brogue like this. There were people that thought he was Jimmy Stewart, even though, there was a good 20 plus years between them. I remember the first time, I guess around the same time, I was 8 or 9, we were going to a place in upstate New York. I want to say it was a place called Lake Welch, and you have to pay the parking attendant. And we're in the station wagon full of kids, this puttering station wagon. And the guy taking the money at the toll leans in and says to my father, "You're Jimmy Stewart." And my dad, he was totally flattered, but he always acted, and he just goes, "He's old enough to be my father." But he loved it. He loved being compared to a great movie star like that. So, and I remember going, who did he say? Who did he say you look like? And it wasn't until, young Jimmy Stewart, white-haired Jimmy Stewart, they sort of seemed like two different entities almost. You could say that about a lot of the old stars. And what was it? Oh, That's Entertainment came on TV shortly after that. And I was at my cousin's house, and I was kind of watching it for the Wizard of Oz footage and things like that. They had a segment with Jimmy Stewart on the rooftop of MGM. And I remember my aunt, also Irish, going, look, there's Jim. And I went, that's who she said. That's Jimmy Stewart. Okay. And that's the guy who was in Spirit of St. Louis. So I started putting it all together then when I was 9 years old. And, he was the guy that looked like Dad. And then, I'd see him on the Tonight Show, and he was always great to watch. Always. I mean, I think that was in the 80s, even though he did just a handful of movies, he was just as beloved just for those, the 10 minutes that Johnny Carson gave him. He was that spectacular. But I would tune in for it. I stayed up late all the time. I had a lot of siblings. Unless you were caught staying up late, you stayed up late. Yeah, I didn't see younger Jimmy. It's a Wonderful Life. This was the era that it would be on 3 different channels at the same time. This was the time when the copyright had run out. And I don't think that was kind of lassoed in until around 1990. So all through the 80s, the movie, you could, tune in and catch the end of it. And then 2 hours later on, Channel 9, you could see the beginning of it. And then PBS used to run it without commercials. And it was just all over the place. And I remember being intrigued because, back then when you would read the TV section and they had the 1-sentence little blurb about the plot of it. And I remember seeing an angel shows a man what the world would be like if he were never born. And I went, that is an intriguing premise. I was only 10, 11 at this point, so I didn't know words like that. But so I said, I remember tuning in for it, and I caught bits and pieces of it, but I was really intrigued. And then I remember, I think by the time I was about 13, I made it a point. PBS was airing it. So they aired it without commercials, sponsored by the Chubb Group. So I watched the whole thing and I was just hooked. And it was before, like, it was just at the point where you could say it was starting to get spoofed on Saturday Night Live and things like that, where it was really becoming part of the pop culture landscape. So, yeah, so that was my multi-level introduction to Jimmy Stewart.
Wow. Well, when did you decide you wanted to be an actor?
About the time I was 11, well, when I was 11, I announced it again to the same Irish aunt. Because I used to draw all the time, and I used to say that I wanted to be an architect, probably a little, Brady Bunch inspired. And I love drawing houses. So I remember an aunt, but that same aunt going, so you're going to be an architect? Maybe, or an actor. And I remember this chorus going, an actor? So, and I was just like, yeah, what's wrong with that? And I think my parents kind of thought I would outgrow it. And then I started doing all the plays in school and really, really getting involved, like to the point where I would make, draw all these posters. One time I painted a backdrop by myself. We had a 2-story window in the front of the school with square glass windows. So it was very mid-century looking. It was 2 stories high. And the director got this idea. He found out my uncle worked for a press company and he used to get all this free paper, like colored paper. And he was like, oh, and Brian draws, gets free paper, and we have this huge window in the school. So I would do these 2-story high advertisements for the plays, like The Crucible and Once Upon a Mattress and things like that. So, and again, it was like something that I had to do, like it took me like a month to do. But I also learned, it's an art that's lost now in the day of type up anything and it automatically centers. What did they call that? It wasn't paste ups where you have to have it centered and then have, like an inch between each letter. And it always looks weird if you have the O too far away and things like that. So I had to learn all of that just from scratch. It's a good thing I was a very curious person. So I just got involved with that. And then that kind of stuck all through college. And the college I went to didn't really have a drama program. They had plays, but that wasn't satisfying for me. So I wound up doing an internship at an off-Broadway theater. That was pretty wonderful too, because that adrenaline kind of followed me into that. They started with 28 interns and I was the last one. So I say that like it's a badge of honor, but it's also like I worked for free the longest. So, but they wound up hiring me. I was the only one that wound up getting hired, and I worked in just about every capacity. And I wound up getting my actor's equity card from it.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, and that's huge. Like coming out of college and you're trying to start an acting career, it's like being plopped in the middle of the desert. Where do I go? What do I do? What doors do I knock on? The producer knew she could use me for, assistant stage manager or scenic or whatever. And she called me this one day and she goes, Brian, I need an assistant stage manager for the main stage show. And I knew that was going to be like a 2 or 3 month commitment. And I was like, I really don't want to do that. I have to start presenting myself as an actor to these people. I have to be an actor. They know me as, it's broken, go get Brian. So I really, really need this. I need somebody I can trust. So the first time in my life, I finagled and I said, okay, I'll do it. They did a 1-act play festival where they brought in a ton of actors and I saw that they got a few of them on the union. I said, I'll do it, but you have to get me on the union come marathon time. And she paused and she went, done. And I hung up the phone and I was a little proud of myself for the first time because that's when you find out, oh my gosh, I can negotiate. I can barter. So.
So you got that. And then when did you decide to leave New York and go to California?
Well, I wasn't a Juilliard graduate. The New York theater community can be intimidating to the little, for an upstart. Even for, I would imagine, like a Juilliard or Carnegie Mellon graduate. But I always felt more comfortable in film. I always appreciated it. I always appreciated the art of it. Not to say I didn't appreciate theater as well, but film was where I really felt like I knew this medium. So I decided I got one of those great New York deals, which are probably non-existent now, where I had like this 2-bedroom apartment by myself because the previous tenant had lived there for like 80 years. So it was really cheap, and I got to paint because the landlord didn't care anymore. And so I decided, okay, it's, you have to start thinking of film. Soon as this lease is up, you're moving to California. And that was pretty much how I did it. Did that, got a car, loaded it up. I moved back in with my parents for like 6 weeks, which is when they finally got cable. And yeah, that was kind of it. I worked 3 jobs, including I was very fortunate enough to my wonderful friend Susie, who you also know. She comes to the festival every year.
Mm-hmm.
Susie is my Margaret Sullivan when we do Shop Around the Corner. Talented actress, dancer. She got me a job for a publishing place, like just doing clerical stuff, and they needed an illustrator. And because I drew, and, I had an in, they wound up using some of my illustrations in textbooks. So it was wonderful that happened right when I needed a big flush of cash, when I'm about to just get in the car, come out to California and start my life over. Yes, exactly. And hope you land on your feet, because I didn't have a job or a place to live. I'd come to visit the year before and once as a kid. So I knew the lay of the land. Yeah, but no, this was just kind of like, bye, everybody. I'll call you in a week when I have a new life. So.
Oh, my gosh. So then you got a job?
Oh, then I got a job, like in New York. You'll be surprised to learn I made a living, shocking, as a waiter. So, of course, I started at a restaurant here, which I later found out, I didn't know it at the time, it was one of the former Brown Derby restaurants.
Oh.
Did you know there were 4 of them? The first one was the hat-shaped one on Wilshire and Alexandria, across from the Ambassador Hotel. The second one was Vine Street. I think I'm getting that right. Vine Street, which that's the establishing shot of when Lucy Ricardo, spills the pie on William Holden. That was the one they show, Hollywood and Vine. Then they had another one on Wilshire and Rodeo, across from the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. Everyone knows it as the Pretty Woman Hotel. A small one, like a luncheonette. And then they had one in Los Feliz, which is like 4 blocks from me. And it was no longer a Brown Derby, but it was the only one that still exists as a functioning restaurant. It's still there. It was a restaurant called Louise's at the time. That was one of my first jobs when I got here. So that was a nice place. You land, you get a nice cheap apartment, and what next? So then you start looking for acting jobs.
Did you get an agent?
Yes, I did. Things all sort of fall together. I was working at Louise's, and this fellow came in who was a photographer, and he opened it. He was showing somebody his book, and it was all these 1930s style photos. They looked very like George Harrell or Clarence Sinclair Bull. So he's just showing them, and I just started chatting with him. I had seen something on the news about him. He's showing me, oh yeah, this is so-and-so's wife, some famous director's wife who wanted to look like Joan Crawford or Anna May Wong or something. I just went, this is great. And, he appreciated the fact that I knew George Harrell and who the photographers were. And I just said, and I swear I wasn't fishing, I said, you're going to get some male models for that now. And he goes, what are you doing tomorrow? I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I'll do it. So I just showed up in my suit. He did it was a very fast photo shoot. I showed up in my suit, posed against the Venetian blinds. It was like snap, snap, snap. I think I was probably out of there in like a half hour.
Wow.
And then he came in with these photos that people swore were Jimmy Stewart. I sent them around. I thought it was going to be a gag to send home. I'm like, I can't possibly use this. But I sent it out to a few agents, like in a little postcard along with a full modern day headshot. And they called me in, but they would send me out on things. And they said they were getting calls from people saying, the guy in this photo, is he 25 or is he 85? Because they thought it was an actual, 1930s photo.
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
Start your morning right with premium coffee roasts available at ZuzuNetwork.com and drink them in your Zuzu All Grown Up coffee mug. Also perfect for tea and hot chocolate.
Stay inspired throughout the day with the same gratitude journal used by Karolyn and Chris. And check out t-shirts, hats, books, Christmas keepsakes, and more at ZuzuNetwork.com/shop.
Are you wondering whether to sell or donate the car you no longer need or want? Consider that. Donating it to a legitimate, legally recognized nonprofit organization, not only will you receive a tax deduction, but you'll be contributing to a worthy cause. Finding a worthy nonprofit organization can be time-consuming and even a bit stressful. I'm here to present to you one of the most amazing, legitimate 501c3 nonprofit organizations in the world. The United Breast Cancer Foundation. The UBCF provides screenings, treatments, aftercare services, educational materials, as well as patient and family assistance. We ask that you help in that mission by donating your unwanted or unused vehicle to the UBCF. Simply call 888-842-5505. The process is fast and easy. Call 888-842-5505. 888-842-5505. Help us in our mission and get a tax deduction. Call 888-842-5505. Thank you for your support.
A careless driver can change your life in an instant. Do you know what to do or who to call? If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident and don't have an attorney, call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free consultation. We can answer all of your questions and estimate the potential value of your case. Call Auto Accident Help Desk and connect with an expert personal injury attorney.
Call 800-297-9766. 800-297-9766.
Don't worry how to handle your medical bills, lost wages, and pain. We will get you the money you deserve.
They got me way more than the insurance company offered.
The consultation is free, and you don't pay any legal fees unless we win or settle your case. Make the smart call if you've been injured in an auto accident. Call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free legal consultation.
Call 800-297-9766. 800-297-9766. 800-297-9766.
Auto Accident Help Desk.
Join Zuzu's network today at zuzunetwork.com/join.
Karolyn is creating an international network of aspiring angels, everyday people who believe that they can help make the world a better place by making life better for even just one other person.
Let us know you want to earn your wings at zuzunetwork.com/join, and Karolyn and Chris will send you inspirational material to support you in your journey.
We're back with more Zuzu All Grown Up.
That helped get me my first agent, because they were kind of selling me as, retro guy. I, got a few gigs from that. I had some family issues. I went back to New York for a little while, came back, and it was time to tighten the belt. It was like, okay, tonight's dinner is going to be eggs again. The actors do that from time to time, and eventually you recover. And one of the things I had decided I'm not going to do this week, I'm not going to get Backstage West. Backstage West is the actors' newspaper that says all the casting things or whatever. And it used to come back in the old days when we had newspapers, and it said all the latest castings. So I decided that week, I'm not going to, it was like $275. I think, okay, tighten the belt. If there's anything, I'll go to the library on Friday and I'll look in it. I got all these calls from friends saying they're casting a Jimmy Stewart for a public service announcement for the city of Beverly Hills. And it's called It's a Wonderful City, which now is also something you can find on YouTube.
Yes. It's a wonderful city.
I got cast in something as Jimmy Stewart previously that never got off the ground. But it was written, I think they had written it it was supposed to be that the ghost of Jimmy Stewart comes back and helps this impressionist. That was the first time I studied Jimmy's voice. And it was written with all the stutters and the stammers in it. And finally, I was having trouble with it. I said, can I just say this? I'm not playing 80-year-old Jimmy Stewart, and you've written him here, like he has a head injury or something. So I said, can I just do, Jimmy did screwball comedies. He did a lot of, he could be a fast talker. Watch, You Can't Take It With You. And that was the era that I resembled. I said, can I do it? Do you mind if I do it my way? And he let me do it. And then it worked. But project still never got off the ground. So I had my Jimmy Stewart voice ready to go. So I show up for this casting call, and the receptionist is there. She goes, "You're the one with that old headshot. I love it. You have to tell me who your photographer is, whatever." She takes me into the room, and there's like 4 or 5 other actors there. And, they're all sitting there diligently reading their signs, but I showed up in my vintage suit. The director, whose name is Richard Gale, he comes out, and he's just got this big smirk on his face. And he comes over and he goes, "Oh, make yourself comfortable. We'll be with you in a few minutes. We just have a few people ahead of you." They never do this at auditions. So he goes, "We'll be with you in a minute. Do you want some water? Anything?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good." And he walks away, goes back into the room. One of the other actors, without even lifting his head up, he goes, "We weren't offered any water." I knew that I was going to get it. So, which was nice. Nice that I got cast in that, especially, when I came back after Time to Tighten the Belt. So I got cast in that. Richard and I hit it off really well. Turns out we have the exact same birthday. He's 2 hours older than me. And this is where he likes horror. So we went to lunch before we filmed and we just started talking about all the movies that we like. We did It's a Wonderful City, got nominated for a local Emmy. And then I wound up doing another public service announcement with him where I won a local Emmy award, which is wonderful. And then Richard and I started making our own films. That was when we did Criticized, the paperclip one with the eye.
Whoa.
And then from that, we did the Spoon Killer one. It was funny. For Criticized, the paperclip one, I went into like full method acting mode and like I read books on mental illness and stuff like that. Then for the Spoon Killer, I made a funny
Terrified
face.
me for months. Months. I was terrified.
Well, that's good. That's good. But then with the Spoon Killer, that's what it's supposed to do. With the Spoon Killer, all I did was make a funny face. And, Richard and I, we discussed the night before because it was going to be a lot of guerrilla filming. Okay, we can't use prosthetics. And we have to, if there's areas where we're not allowed to film, you have to be able to kind of hide. So I got a black hoodie, like an irregular one, as large as I could. My face wasn't even supposed to show. So then we said, okay, what face would you not want to see? If you open your eyes in the middle of the night, what do you not want to see staring at you? So I just made a series of scary faces. So that was the frozen face of the Spoon Killer. And we put a little white makeup on. And suddenly it went on YouTube and people got tattoos of me. I went to those conventions, those comic book conventions, not as a I went, to shop to buy stuff. And I saw people dressed up as me, at Halloween parades. And I don't know how it happened, but it was just one of those things that clicked. People, there's an action figure now. I am an action figure. And we did not commission it. It was a company in France that just liked the movie. And he just tagged me in it on Instagram. And I was like, I loved it. It was so great. He sent me a whole bunch of them now. White Flag Toys. Look up White Flag Toys, everybody. They're a wonderful upstart toy company.
So were you surprised by the success of Spoon Killer?
I was shocked. I really was. Because when Richard described it, we were waiting. We were going to do a feature version of Criticized. And Richard had the script ready to go. And it was just one of those things where some delays started happening and money issues, as often happens. So he said, well, let's do a horror short. I have this idea of a killer who kills somebody with a spoon. And honestly, it wasn't anything that struck me as terribly hysterical, but I don't sound ungrateful, but I did kind of mean it with a shrug because I was like, I'm unemployed now. Okay. So we did it. And it was supposed to be, he said it was going to be a 3-day shoot. It wound up being 20-something days.
Wow.
Yeah, he put it together. And the first festival we entered, we won a prize. And I want to say it's won like 19 awards since then, festival awards.
Yeah.
And my co-star in it is Paul Clements, who you might know, if you're horror fans, will know him from The Beast Within. 1982 is a very popular horror movie. He has his own action figure too. He's actually the son of Eleanor Parker, 3-time Oscar nominee, Baroness from The Sound of Music. Yeah, so he's my co-star in that and a real sweetheart.
Okay, now it was about this time in your life that you got a job at Universal. Is that right?
Yes, I started there as a tour guide. Then because I love all things Hollywood, and it was all a lot of fun. And then I became a VIP guide, which was even more fun. And then I got some acting work. So I went on a leave of absence from Universal. I'm lucky I was still in the computer system. I did a show at Laguna Playhouse, which I think I sent you the reviews for because I played a 1930s newspaper reporter. And I think 9 different critics compared me to Jimmy Stewart in it, which was great. So the previous Halloween, I had done another Hitchcock hero, I had done Anthony Perkins / Norman Bates for Universal for Halloween. A lot of their horror characters that they do, they can hide behind a mask, but I'm a tall, lanky, dark-haired guy. And apparently, I have read that Alfred Hitchcock told Anthony Perkins, you remind me of a young James Stewart. And this was right after, he had done Vertigo. So I think there was something maybe in the casting of Tony Perkins, because Hitchcock loved working with Jimmy. Jimmy was that only man that you could do these very sick and twisted things. In Rear Window, he's looking through a telescope at his neighbors, and you're not thinking, wow, that guy's a weirdo. It's Jimmy Stewart. You're putting yourself in his place, and you'd be doing the same thing. And in Vertigo, he gives a woman a makeover to look like somebody who's dead. And it's beautiful, and it's hypnotic, and it does not enter your mind how unhealthy and sick that is, because it's Jimmy Stewart. And now he had Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins, who had to get the audience sympathies. The stories with Janet Leigh for 45 minutes. And then suddenly she's killed off, and the audience is left going, huh? Wait, we were following her story. And then suddenly you need a sympathetic lead now, killer almost, that the audience is rooting for in a way. We're introduced to him as the dutiful son who's cleaning up. So the Norman Bates in the book by Robert Bloch is described as kind of slovenly, older alcoholic who passes out all the time. But Hitchcock decided to cast a Jimmy Stewart type who would get the audience sympathies when he's cleaning up his mother's crime. You would see him doing these very depraved things, and the audience is with him. That was one of Hitchcock's strengths. Long-winded answer, I started playing Norman Bates on the Universal tour. They went from Halloween to a daily thing. Yeah, in fact, they're making a big deal of it right now because they're doing the 60th anniversary of the studio tour, which began in 1964. That was how the whole theme park started. It started with tours of the studio, and then they started adding the rides and all that. But the Psycho House has always been, from the beginning. By 1964, that house was 4 years old. And it's always been like one of the centerpieces of the studio tour. They're making a big deal of it. Now, people get off the tram at the Psycho House and they walk past, I get to interact with them as Norman Bates. So it's very funny because it's just me in a sports jacket and people just scream and run away from me. You see that scary Victorian house behind me. And I give all that credit to Perkins. He had a wonderful way of making people feel uncomfortable. It's all in the stare. When you look at somebody's face, it's kind of like a Monet. You kind of see the whole face. But if you look directly in their eyes, in their retinas, people start to shrink away, and it makes them really uncomfortable. So that's the secret to being a good Norman Bates.
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
To find out more about the organization featured in today's episode or a previous episode, and to learn more about how you can help, go to zuzunetwork.com/beanangel.
Again. Here's that song again. For the 100th time today. Here's that song again. It's gonna be stuck in your head all day. Here's that song again. It will make you cray, cray.
You love your kids enough to watch that TV show a bajillion times. Love them enough to make sure they're in the right car seat for their age and size. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This is an important announcement for anyone who wants health insurance, even if you missed the deadline. That's right. Don't worry if you missed the deadline for open enrollment. Right now, you can get the health insurance you and your family need from top insurance providers, even if you have pre-existing conditions or no insurance at all. The Plus Benefits Health Insurance toll-free number has been extended to help anyone who wants health insurance coverage now, or anyone who just needs a better plan or a lower price. Did you miss the penalty deadline, have a baby, get married, or get dropped from your plan? Don't worry, plans are available available now, and in just minutes, we will help you find the right plan that's best for you and your budget. Call Plus Benefits Health Insurance now at 800-332-1993. The call is 100% free and the help is real. You can finally get health insurance that's right for you. But hurry and get covered before it's too late.
Call 800-332-1993 now to find the best plan at the lowest price. Call 800-332-1993. That's 800-332-1993. 800-332-1993.
Imagine having all the money you need for retirement, all the income, every month, guaranteed. That's Secure Future Investor. Secure Future utilizes an indexed annuity tied to growth in the U.S. stock market, but without any risk of loss ever. That's right. No matter what happens in the market, your investment can never decline. Down years, you're insured against any losses. Boom years, your retirement account grows exponentially to increase your worth. Whether the market is up or down, Secure Future Investor can set you up with guaranteed money for life income. It's the difference between thinking you have enough money to retire and knowing you're getting that retirement check every single month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Over 40 years old? Call now. 888-288-7088. 888-288-7088. Sponsored by GP Agency Inc., Raleigh, North Carolina. Licensed in all states. Performance may vary. Consult with your financial professional before making an investment decision.
1 out of 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. And the chances are you know at least one person who's been personally affected. But right now, you can help. It's simple. Donate your unwanted vehicle, RV, or trailer to the United Breast Cancer Foundation. It's the easiest way to contribute to one of the nation's leading charitable organizations. The process is fast, easy, and free. Not only will you be helping, but you'll also receive a tax deduction. The United Breast Cancer Foundation offers an array of programs and services that help and support families and individuals dealing with breast cancer. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. Simply give us a call to get started, and we'll schedule a pickup date that is convenient for you. If you have any questions you would like answered before initiating the donation process, please feel free to call us toll-free at 800-324-6218. That's 800-324-6218. 800-324-6218.
Zuzu's book club features recommendations from Zuzu herself on books she loves and thinks you will love also. All of the books that the club reads, fiction and nonfiction, are inspirational and uplifting. Folks, this is a life-enhancing club to be part of. You can sign up for free at zuzunetwork.com/book club. That's zuzunetwork.com/book club.
This is Zuzu, all grown up.
After that, you met me.
You were so kind to me because one of the things you didn't add when I met you, and I had on my LA poker face, which is like when you meet a celebrity or somebody who has meant something to you over the years, you just kind of do like, oh, hi, nice to meet you, even though inside you go, oh, I can't believe it, it's Zuzu. Oh, she took my arm. So yeah, I was squealing like a teenager to Bobby Soxer inside. But you were so good to me because you had a whole table, memorabilia and things, and you stopped what you were doing. And you took a break. You took me by the arm and you went and you were telling me stories of Jimmy, and you were telling me, oh, there's projects in the future. I would love to work with you. You made me feel so welcome. And immediately you made me feel like, part of the It's a Wonderful Life family, which has only accelerated over the years. But it was a few years before I joined you in Seneca Falls. We kept on in touch through email and then social media. And I saw in 2016 it was going to be the 70th anniversary. But
I had to talk them into it,
You did, and you showed them the Spoon Killer, and I think you did more to talk them out of it. I think you told me Anway at the museum had said, I don't know about this guy.
Right.
This is our George Bailey, and I'm beating somebody with a spoon. I could see where that would be a tough sell.
Yeah, it was a tough sell. But boy, you came.
Yes, and
you conquered.
I always remember, Anway didn't know me. And I love you, Anway. I know she might be listening to this. She's wonderful. She runs the museum. I think she was a little like, what's this guy going to do? And so much is going on. You really have to be self-starting. You had to have your bearings. And everybody goes off. Somebody's doing a talk here. Somebody's posing for pictures here. Somebody's signing stuff here. Somebody's performing this here. It's a 10-ring circus. Yes. And I mean that positively. And I think she was, who's this new guy? What's he going to do? And she was a little bit of a helicopter mom the first day. Like, what's he doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And by day 2, I remember I'd made the moon. I brought the football costume, the Buffalo Gal football costume with the stripes and the number 3 on it and the oversized football pants. And I made the moon with the rope and was posing for pictures with people. And I remember she came up to me with the, what's he doing? And she looked at me and she put her arms together like she was praying. She did a bow to me and then she walked away with a thank you. And then she went, "You're coming next year, right?" So I thought, okay, I'm in the club.
And you've been coming ever since.
Yes.
And from there you met.
Oh, I met Janie McCurgan at the Jimmy Stewart Museum. She came out in 2021 for the 75th anniversary. And it was really fun. She has a birthday in December during the festival. And I remember I serenaded her. I know how you love when I sing. Sometimes, for those of you who don't know, Jimmy introduced a song called Easy to Love. And at the final dinner, sometimes I break out the pipes and I sing so often to Karolyn, "You'd be so easy to love." Jimmy wasn't known for his singing voice, and that's another thing he and I have in common. Yeah, so Janie had a birthday in early December during the festival, and she was leaving the next day. So I remember I got up at the opening night dinner and I sang, "You'd be so easy to love." And she really appreciated it. Yeah, so she invited me. I don't think the singing had anything to do with it, but she invited me to Jimmy's hometown following year. I had been there once when I was driving cross country. I stopped. I didn't realize it's so close to Punxsutawney, Indiana, Pennsylvania. You kind of have to drive through Punxsutawney, at least the way I came, which is Groundhog Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember I spent the day there, went to the museum, but this is years ago when I was just, me. And I went, at the time they had a Jimmy Stewart themed restaurant, like a diner, and they had posters of him all over the wall.
What about the Charleston Flash Mob?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So now I've done 2 years performing as Jimmy. I did 2022 and 2023 performing in Jimmy's hometown. They call theirs the It's a Wonderful Life Festival, and it never crashes into, it's usually just before Thanksgiving. So it's sort of like the whole season. It never crashes into the Seneca Falls Festival in upstate New York. So the first year, one of my highlights was through a series of coincidences, I got up to the rooftop where Jimmy posed for the Life magazine cover in 1945 in his World War II uniform. He had just come back from the war, and the Life magazine photographer was there and kind of followed him around. Jimmy comes home and followed him, took pictures of him at the hardware store and having dinner with the family, things like that. And he posed on a rooftop. And I asked Janie, "Is there any way I could get up there?" And she went, "It's a privately owned building. I don't know anybody who lives there." And just through a series of coincidences, somebody's like, "Oh, I know somebody who lives there. Oh, I know somebody who lives on the top floor. Oh, I know so." And then even when I got to the top floor, they're like, "Oh, but the roof is usually locked." And that's where the guardian angel came in, because we went and the roof was unlocked. And I got to sit in the same spot where Jimmy sat and posed for the Life magazine photo. I don't think I slept that night. I went home on the airplane that day, and I was just like, I can't believe I did that. That was fantastic. Then the following year, one of the highlights was Susie Myers, Tippa, that's her married name. Susie and I did plays together in high school. She has remained one of my best friends. She helped me move into that cheap New York apartment in January, where I had a mattress on the roof of her car. She's my only friend in New York with a car. So, and the bungee cord started coming off, so we had to hold it in the 20-degree New York winter weather. Going, "Oh my God, my hands are frozen." And she's just been the greatest friend over the years, and she's so talented. She's a dancer, she's an actress, and we've just done so many things over the years together, even though she's still New York based. So she came up to the festival, and when she was coming up, I was like, "Oh, let's do a radio show of Shop Around the Corner." because you need somebody that you can spar with. Shop Around the Corner is that I work with you and I can't stand you, but we're sending love letters to each other. So you need somebody who goes, I won't, I will, blah, blah, blah. Somebody who understands the screwball comedy back and forth. And Susie, she's wonderful. So she was going to come to Indiana, Pennsylvania, and she had suggested, let's do a Charleston flash mob, where she went on Zoom and she spoke to, I think it was 3 different dance troupes that are located in the Indiana, Pennsylvania area. So in the center of town, it's 7th and Philadelphia Street, which is just down the hill from Jimmy's house. I know you've been there. Basically, the town square. They have a whole festival with big Christmas tree, and over the loudspeaker came this 1920s version of the Charleston with a nice intro where she's trying to coax me into doing the dance. So suddenly we start doing the dun, 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 and we do the knee knocking and all that. And then suddenly about, I think like 30 more people come in. And then we all dance together. And then another like 30 more people come in. And it just turned into this great big Charleston flash mob. And it was really so wonderful. If anybody wants to see it, if you go to the Jimmy Stewart Museum page on Facebook, you'll have to scroll down a little bit. Maybe if you just click on videos. I don't know how the museum page works, but it was just one of those crazy videos. I don't think it's on YouTube. It should be. You can definitely find it on the museum Facebook page. So,
did it rain?
Oh yes, it was raining.
You forgot that.
I forgot that part. Well, if we couldn't fall into a swimming pool at the end, we might as well.
And it was pouring rain.
But you know what? It looked like it was heavier than it was because they had lights on us, and in the foreground, you could see the rain coming down. Trust me, that suit I was wearing is like 90 years old. If I thought it was going to get ruined, I would have called the whole thing off. It's kind of like it's a replica of the one that he wore in that Charleston scene. It's got like those big 1920s lapels that almost hit my shoulders. That's hard to find in my size. Yeah, no, it looked like it was pouring rain, which added to the romance of it. It was a heavy mist, but it added to the ambiance.
That's good.
Yes, yeah.
I thought you were getting drenched.
No,
you recently won an award for a show that you did out in Los Angeles.
I did a show called Marilyn, Mom, and Me. Now, I don't know if you remember, there was a very popular character actress in the day named Eileen Heckert. She's an Oscar winner. She won, I think it was 1972, in the 73 ceremony. She won an Oscar for the movie Butterflies Are Free with Goldie Hawn. But she had a very distinguished Broadway career, won every award out there, was in The Bad Seed. She had that wonderful drunk scene. And she worked with Marilyn Monroe in the movie Bus Stop. And she has a son named Luke Yankee. Luke is a playwright and actor, director, does it all. Luke used to ask his mom about all of the people she worked with. And he had a wonderful childhood. Like, he grew up as Vivian Vance was his next door neighbor. And, Ethel Merman used to come to the Christmas parties. And so he just devour these stories. But his mother would never really share things about Marilyn Monroe. And when she did, sometimes, it was usually that she was late all the time. It was the dismissive stuff. She passed away in, I want to say 2001. He delved deeper into it and learned that they actually had a lot in common. Marilyn had just come from New York studying method acting. And since Eileen Heckert was playing her best friend, she basically walked up to her and said, "We're playing best friends. Can we be best friends?" And for the duration of the film, Marilyn was very much a part of her life. And then, the film ended and she never saw her again. So Luke, who is, quite a successful playwright, has several published shows. He wrote a play about his mother's relationship with Marilyn Monroe and how that affected him growing up. And he cast me as his younger self. Luke he's like 6'4" and lanky. He's also blonde, so I went the extra mile. I got my hair bleached blonde for this production.
I saw that. Oh, my.
Yes. Yeah, it was fun. It was kind of fun. They do have more fun. So that ran in Long Beach at the International City Theater, which is a larger equity house, and really did quite well. We just won a series of awards. So Stage Scene LA gave an award. I won Outstanding Featured Performance in a Comedy Drama at a Larger Theater. So that was pretty nice.
That was very nice. Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty thrilled with that. Thank you. Stephen Stanley is a fellow who comes to all the shows and decides who's winning what. So thank you, Stephen Stanley. I've never met you in person, but I appreciate you.
Before I do say goodbye,
Uh-huh.
is there any way that you could turn into Jimmy Stewart for just a minute or two for our listeners?
Okay. I will do a little something, which we'll do quick talking Jimmy Stewart, and I hope I don't blow out the microphone. So I'm not going to yell Merry Christmas, but you sit around and you spin your little web and you think the whole world revolves around you and your money. Well, it doesn't, Mr. Potter. And the whole vast configuration of things, I'd say you were nothing but a scurvy little spider. That goes for you, too. That goes for you, too. How's that?
I loved it.
Okay, I'm a little out of practice. I haven't done that in months now, but there you go.
That's great. Thank you, Brian, for
thank you, Karolyn. It's great to see you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye, Karolyn.
Do you know someone who is earning their wings? Someone practicing kindness and service to others? Perhaps an organization or initiative helping make the world we live in a kinder, sweeter place.
Or maybe you've witnessed the miraculous, the divine, the magnificent in some way in your life, and you'd like to share it with others. Go to zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory and let us know more.
You may end up being featured on an upcoming episode of Zuzu All Grown Up. That's zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory. Now here's Seth Kennedy with today's parting thoughts.
Brian Rohan, thank you for joining us. It's been great fun. Indeed, by bringing George Bailey to life for us, you also help bring the Christmas spirit to life. And for all of you listening out there, and can catch Brian in one of his performances throughout the year in many different parts of the country, do your very best to do so. You'll be in for a real treat. You're listening to Zuzu, All Grown Up. We'll be back soon.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
We hope you've been inspired to live your most wonderful life now and to help those around you do the same.
Remember, no matter what you're going through, no matter who you are, there are people who care about you and your life makes a difference.
It is a wonderful life.
Check out ZuzuNetwork.com for more on today's and other episodes, including transcripts and merchandise you won't want to be without.
New episodes are coming soon.
For transcripts of today's broadcast, go to ZuzuNetwork.com/transcripts. Zuzu All Grown Up with your hosts Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Chris Brunel.
Announcer and guide Seth Kennedy.
Executive producer Kevin R. Stillmock.
Coordinating producer Holly Ann Way.
Technical producer Stella Joel.
Managing producer Karina Filatova. A Wonderful Land production.
In collaboration with Radio Wonderful.